This man did not sell a plane. He did not even sell a runway. He sold an entire airport that never existed for a whopping $242 million. In 2005, Emmanuel Nwude was convicted for pulling the biggest 419 scam in history. In 1995, Emmanuel, who earlier worked as a director at Union Bank of Nigeria, used his experience to defraud a Brazilian bank into paying for a non-existent airport. He knew how the banking world in Nigeria worked. He knew who signed what, how a deal moved from rumor to memo to money. He knew the language of officials, the right stamps and letterheads, the pauses that make a promise sound confidential. Above all, he understood the one thing that bends rules in any era: the lure of a quiet profit. And that was what caught the attention of Nelson Sakaguchi, the then director of Banco Noroeste in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Emmanuel pitched an airport project in Abuja, Nigeria capital city. The deal, is said, was highly sensitive, the kind of news that never touched the newspapers. If Sakaguchi could help fund it quietly, he would receive a personal commission worth $10 million. What even made this deal seem real was that Emmanuel had become someone else. He impersonated the then governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Paul Oguma, to send messages and phone calls. The first messages will arrive Brazil by fax and phone. Then more communications followed on official letterhead with correct names, dates, and references to genuine ministries. With every exchange, the story gained detail: projected passenger traffic, construction schedules, regulatory clearance. It all felt real because it matched what a real project would look like. The conversations did not just happen on phone, they met in person. Emmanuel and his accomplice staged a meeting which took place in London, where negotiations took place. It was during this meeting that the contract documents were allegedly signed between both parties. The deal proceeded and the cash started flowing in from Brazil, not once but in series, via swift transfers from Banco Noroeste's Cayman Island branch. These transfers were executed as instructed by the fraudsters posing as government officials. The funds were routed into various accounts controlled by Emmanuel Nwude and his associates, including entities like Stanton Development Corporation and others. For nearly 3 years, the money flowed. By the end, more than $240 million has left Banco Noroeste, about $191 million in cash, and the rest, about $51 million, covered as outstanding interest, totaling $242 million in payments to Emmanuel and his network. Inside the bank, the gap was hidden in the noise of normal business: long spreadsheets, busy departments, days that blurred into weeks. Emmanuel did not just carry out this act alone. The $242 million scam was pulled off with a full cast of accomplices. Izeribe Okoli was the architect. He forged contracts, letters, and documents that made the project look real, even posing as a Ministry of Aviation insider. Emmanuel Ofule played the contact man. He posed as a senior aviation official, sent forged central bank letters, and kept Sakaguchi convinced the Nigeria government was backing the project. Christian Anajemba acted as the banker. He managed accounts where the money landed and laundered it through multiple channels. He died before trial, leaving his widow, Amaka Amajemba, to face the law. Tafida Williams set the scam in motion. In March 1995, he wrote the first fraudulent letter to Sakaguchi, introducing the fake $39 million transfer, which was the first transfer. Obum Ozakwe worked in the background, helping coordinate the operation, and through shell companies like Stating Development Corporation, they disguise stolen money as legitimate business transfers. But here is the other side. Sakaguchi himself wasn't innocent. He had allies inside and outside Banco Noroeste willing to gamble the bank's future for his personal gain. The deal lingered on in secret. Everything seemed normal. The scam went unnoticed for several years, allowing Nwude and his company to enjoy the profits. They used the money to buy luxury items and live lavish lifestyles. It was not until 1997 when Spanish banking giant Banco Santander set its sights on acquiring Banco Noroeste. During this sale process, the new owners noticed some unusual transactions in the bank records. This led to a thorough investigation, which uncovered the fake airport's investment. The discovery was shocking because the scam had gone undetected for so long and involved such a large amount of money. This sparked curiosity. They began to ask questions. They wanted to know why so much of Noreste's money was parked in Cayman's account, why half of their capital was sitting unmonitored far from home. At a joint board meeting that December, those questions landed like bombs. The room froze. There was silence. Nobody could explain where the money had gone. That silence opened the floodgates. Investigations started across Brazil, Britain, Nigeria, Switzerland, and the United States. The so-called confidential Abuja airport deal crumbled the moment real investigators started asking real questions. Nelson Sakaguchi was arrested in New York and sent to Switzerland on charges tied to the offshore accounts. Back in Brazil, the wealthy families who owned Banco Noroeste plugged the hole themselves to get the sale done. Even then, the bank never recovered. It collapsed in 2001. A ghost airport had sunk a real institution. The Brazilian authorities, with the help of international investigators, traced the fraudulent transactions back to Emmanuel and his network. The scale of the fraud and the way it was carried made it a high-profile case. By 2004, Nigeria itself was in transition, a new institution. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission had just arrived on the scene. Emmanuel and his accomplices were apprehended and charged with dozens of charges, including advance fee fraud, bribery, and more. The courtroom became a stage for chaos. A judge in Abuja tossed the case out, claiming he had no jurisdiction. But before the defendants could leave the courthouse, they were rearrested on the steps. There were rumors spread about a bomb scare and bribery attempt inside the court. The case was moved to the Lagos High Court before Justice Joseph Oyewole, where Nwude and his accomplices faced 86 counts of fraud, bribery, and corruption. But while the drama played out in headlines, the evidence was overwhelming. And when witnesses took the stand, especially Nelson Sakaguchi, the bones of the scheme became clear: the false identity, the forged document, the offshore account, and the promise of a secret commission. One of the accomplices, Amaka Anajemba, the wife of Christian Anajemba, was the first to plead guilty. She pleaded guilty and admitted her family had profited. She even agreed to repay $25 million. Nwude was defiant at first. He fought with every step to manipulate the legal process, but the evidences could not be ignored. In late 2005, Nwude was sentenced to multiple 5-year prison terms and ordered to hand over his lavish assets, including mansions, cars, cash, and was forced to repay Banco Noroeste the $242 million he had stolen. For Nigeria, the case was more than punishment. It was a statement that even powerful fraudsters could be dragged into court and held accountable. Sakaguchi, meanwhile, wasn't treated purely as a victim. In Brazil, questions spun about how a senior banker could sign off on transfers of that scale without oversight. He faced his own investigations, though his fate was quieter than Nwude's. Banco Noroeste itself never recovered. The bank name faded into history, swallowed after the scandal. Nwude served part of his sentence but was later released in 2006 after a plea bargain. However, his release was not the end of his troubles. In 2016, he was arrested again for allegedly being involved in a murder case connected to a land dispute. Nwude's case continues to be a subject of interest because it highlights the persistence of fraudsters, and his stories serve as a reminder that the consequences of fraud can follow perpetrators long after their initial crimes. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more stories like this.